So my name is Ray Bartlett, and I'm a travel writer. I'm based on Cape Cod, but I also live in Mexico, and I've lived in Japan, and traveled extensively around Korea. I have a novel that's just come out in October that is based on my time in Yucatan, or at least the settings and locations are from my time there. The plot is, of course, entirely fiction. The coolest thing that I think writing, it's almost paradoxical, because writing, while it's a solitary venture and you're sitting by yourself a lot of the time that you write, it is incredibly powerful. It's an incredibly powerful way to reach people and to interact with people. And especially on the other side of publishing, you get to talk to a lot of people and really see how your book is affecting their lives. And that's a very humbling and also very powerful experience. I'm trying to coin the term destination fiction. So this is one of those books that you will pick up because you pick it up, and by the end of the book you will be dying to get tickets and visit this part of Mexico. I've seen so many people, especially in the United States, be afraid of Mexico, and part of the reason for writing it is to show the real experience of somebody, a tourist, who arrives just expecting to be there for a week for some vacation, some much needed R&R. He's a news cameraman for a Boston area helicopter, and has a bad experience. It's not really a plot spoiler to say that something happens and he just wants to take some time off, get away from it all. And while the book is a love story between two people, it's also a love story between a man falling in love with Mexico. And if there's a part of the book that's very personally connected to me, I would say that part is. I started going to Mexico in college, and little by little it's such a rich, wonderful, beautiful country that I hope a lot of people, and it's accessible too, so I hope a lot of people are able to read the book, get over their fears about going there, and actually jump on a plane and see it for themselves. I mean, I don't want to get too political, but as a travel writer, you can't go anywhere in the world and not realize how human every single country is, and how people are so just sweet and friendly and helpful, and whether you speak the language or whether you don't speak the language, it's only in America that people want English only and all that stuff. So.
Hello, my name is Paul Richmond, and I'm with Human Air Publishing. We run a yearly festival in October. It's 6 days in Greenfield. Actually, I run a number of really big festivals. I'm also at the Garlic Festival and Arts Festival. I have a stage there for writers. About 40 writers read there every year. We publish independent artists, so these are many of the books that independent writers from around the valley have come to me to have their works published. What I try to do is create venues and stages so that people find their voice. And anybody who's even written their first poem on a napkin and is worried about getting out there, I try to create a venue for them to be able to have a space to learn how to do that, and also a place for, quote, professionals who put out a lot of books. So the reason that I do these venues and do Human Air Publishing is because we live in a democracy, and if you live in a democracy, it helps if you can actually express your views. And most people, when they ask them, would you like to be on stage, they say, no, just pull out my fingernails. I don't want to make any public speaking engagements. And so I find that a little strange. If people felt strong enough about who they are and strong enough about talking, then we might have a stronger democracy. So that's why I try to use the stage as encouraging people to not be afraid about standing up and saying it as it is.
I'm Bailey Jones. I'm a MFA student in the program at Western New England University, and we're a 2-year low residency program, so that means that you don't actually have to be on campus to take classes. If you have a full-time job or a family or you live out of state, you can still participate in this master's program. We have 2 alternating residencies, one in the summer and one in the winter. The winter residencies alternate between the Berkshires and Dublin, Ireland. So it's a really great opportunity if you want to travel travel and write, and we're a fiction program as well. And some of our students work with Common Ground Review, which is a poetry journal, and we have a poetry contest once a year, but we accept poetry submissions year-round on Submittable.
This display, we are Northampton Poetry Open Mic. We are a weekly open mic at the World War II Club in Northampton. We have a very vibrant open mic followed by a nationally touring poet as a feature, or once a month we have a very popular slam. Again, featuring nationally touring poets. From that slam we send poets to National Poetry Slam too. We're very vibrant, fun, you can drink. It's a lot of fun there. We do it every week. We've been doing it for several years now. Very much part of the community. I read, my friends read as well.
Who's your favorite poet?
Other than myself here, right here, I'm going to point at two today. I'm going to point at, I probably can't even look at this, but this is Sarah Hill. She's just one of our most recent slams, and she's a Smith College student. She's just brilliant. She's heartbreaking and funny. And I want to also point out Catherine. This is one of the most original things we have here is this anxious workbook. I find it, again, moving and funny too.
And I heard over that that artist is here today, yes?
Catherine is right over there. She's a little shy. She's not gonna come on frame, but this is something worth noticing as well. Our other shy person is.
You want to give us a wave? Get her in a wave?
Yep. Our other poet who's here today is Forrest Proper. He's also there behind hiding, and for what it's worth, that's me. But I think we got the idea based on we have a lot of poets. We're close to East Hampton, and all of us are publishing ourselves. And I feel like we wanted to go where the readers were, where the audience was. And I think there's nothing wrong with taking what is a close-knit community and spreading it out, because I think ultimately that's part of all of it. So.
Are you guys hooked up with Meat for Tea?
We know of Meat for Tea. I'm sure they'll like us a lot. But
You should hook up,
yeah,
because she's awesome.
I know Elizabeth's awesome. Yeah, Elizabeth is a big, yeah, definitely. Maybe later we'll bring it all over there. We'll just throw it on there and say, pick what you want. And
Yeah. We'd be into doing slams. We'd be into doing.
My name is Trisha Woldridge. I'm here with Jennifer Alice Provost. We are both authors. We met through an organization called Broad Universe, which promotes women who write science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And then we stayed friends. We're also part of the New England Horror Writers Organization. And we ended up sharing a bunch of publishing houses together. So because we've done several other shows through the various organizations, and we're both Springfield natives, so we decided, hey, this looks cool, and we brought our books, and it's been a really great event so far. Each of these we've written through a variety of different publishing houses. I have a webcomic, that's what that is. Jen has a high fantasy series through a small press. I've got some children's books through a mid-sized press, romance, horror, fantasy, science fiction, so a combination of short stories, novels, poetry, and all of the like. I've been writing, my first publication was in 2008, and I've been selling short stories and poetry since then. My first novel, The Kelpie, came out in 2013.
Yes.
And Heir to the Sun came out in what, 2015. Support local authors. If you like authors' books, leave them reviews. Support local bookstores, because bookstores are good to authors. And support local events like this, because that's where we get to meet each other, and we get to meet you, and we sign books.
I'm Laura Holland. I'm with Paper Bag Press, and I live in Amherst. And I'm in Eastworks for the Lit Fest with a whole group of handmade, one-of-a-kind books. Yes, I've made all of them. Some of them I've done all of the photographs and all of the writing, but I thought I would tell you about the series that I'm actually stitching together right now, which are that's what these are. And these are based on, I was inspired by a verb. that was invented by the poet Howard Nemeroff. People kept telling him that too bad you weren't here last month when the azaleas were blooming. Too bad you weren't here 2 years ago when we had 3 feet of snow. So he invented this verb, to azaleate, to indicate all these things that we're never going to do. They already happened. They have nothing to do with us. They happened someplace else. But people sort of want us to acknowledge how interesting they were. So I went around looking at posters for events that looked very interesting. I would have loved to go to them, but for one reason or another, I did not. And I put them together in a series of books, hand-stitching them all together. These 4 books are the posters of events that I would have loved to go to that I never did. This one book represents the things that I did go to, that I completely enjoyed, but I'm interested in that balance also of all of these unexplored possibilities. This is a series that's ongoing, and I'm hoping to get a few more in the what I did column as opposed to what I did not do column.
Anything else you'd like to add?
There are other books that are made more in response also to things that I did, and I'd like to show you this one, which is a response to an exhibit that was up recently at the University Museum of Contemporary Art, where 40 local artists and designers made chairs. So I took posters that were advertising the show, added in my own photographs and elements, some pop-up elements, pictures of my students going through the show.
My name is Ellen Everett Hopman. I live in Belchertown, and I've been living in the Valley for about 30 years. I've been writing for about 30 years. Wrote my first book when I moved to Belchertown, and I've been at it ever since. The newest book, the newest herbal is actually this one, which is, it's called Secret Medicines from Your Garden, which is a book that teaches you about the herbal uses of plants and the spiritual aspects, magical aspects as well. So you can plan a garden, hedgerows, you know, a vegetable garden, a flower garden, a meditation garden, any kind of a garden that you want, and know the spiritual aspects and the magical aspects of the plants that you're putting in, what the properties are. There's also a detailed formula making system that I was taught by my teacher, William Lasassier, many years ago. So I was encouraged by other herbalists to write this book, to put it together before it's too late, is what they said, because it's a 18-part formula making system. It's based on Chinese medicine, but it's using Western herbs. So there's about 40 pages in the back of the properties of Western herbs. Are they builders? Are they cleansers? Are they tonics? And it teaches you how to put these things together in unique formulas for people. This one, which is called Secret Medicines of Your Kitchen, teaches you how to make home remedies basically with foods and spices that you already have in the kitchen. And it was printed in London. It's beautifully done. The colors, amazing colors. And then this is a children's herbal. We're Walking the World in Wonder, a children's herbal, which is 75 projects to do with kids, so parents and teachers can teach kids about how to use medicinal herbs. And then this one is called Scottish Herbs and Fairy Lore, which it has a Highland herbal in the middle, and most of the plants that grow in the Highlands actually grow here in the Valley. So you can actually work with Scottish plants right here in the Valley. And I'm here basically just to showcase some of the work that I do. I also do fiction. I didn't bring any of my fiction books. I think I have 13 titles at this point. Yeah, so I've worked in just about every genre. And this one also is a little bit of a memoir, so it's both a pretty detailed herbal. I mean, there's a lot of herbal information. Very nice illustrations from old botanical prints, but there's also a little bit of a memoir in here, so that's kind of fun. Basically, I was an art history student, Temple University. They sent me to Rome on a scholarship, and I was studying art history, and I went to Assisi, which is the town that St. Francis lived in, and I ended up in a Franciscan community. I'm making a very long story short, but we were supposed to fast twice a week and go off, they called it wandering in the wilderness, you know, and I climbed this mountain called Mount Subasio, which is a mountain where St. Francis used to go, and there was thunder, lightning. I came back down the mountain, and I went into this little Romanesque chapel, and I heard a voice. Literally, a voice told me, you know, you're supposed to be working with plants. And I knew it was right. I knew it was true. And even though I was there, you know, in libraries studying art history and writing a thesis and all that. And so after that, I just basically sold all my possessions. First, I went to Findhorn in Scotland and studied flower essence counseling and hands-on healing and other things. Then I came back to the States, met my teacher, William Lasassier, in New York City, worked with him for 5 months, and then hit the ground running, and I've been writing books and helping people and teaching ever since. That was in the mid-'80s. So I've been at it for a while.
It must be.
Yeah, the whole thing is crazy. I mean, back when I got into this, there were very few books out there. There were no computers. You couldn't walk into Whole Foods, you know, and type in a condition and have things pop up. You couldn't Google anything. You had, if you wanted information, you had to go to the library, or you had to have a teacher. So I had to travel all around the world. I had to go to Scotland. You know, it's like I had to go all over the place just to get the training. And now it's completely different. You know, you can walk into any Whole Foods or any big health food store and say, oh, I have this condition, and then they can look it up, and within seconds, you know. But you still need a teacher. I mean, if you're serious about this, if you want to learn how to make formulas, you really need a teacher. And especially if you want to learn how to go out and identify plants and gather them or use them for food, you know, anything like that, you need a teacher. You still need a teacher. And I teach in Belchertown. I teach a 6-month course every year, October to April. And if people look up my website, it's just elleneverthoffman.com. Sign up for the class, and you know, I work with people. I've been doing that here in the Valley since 1986.
Hi, my name's Tom Crean, and I'm here, primarily I'm selling my book, and it is Tom Crean's Guitar Journal, A Life Described Through Music. The book is a summary of my guitar journal project. I did it for 10 years, from 2004 through 2014. In doing the project, it was published as a podcast. I felt that there was some removal from the actual being able to describe my life through music. And the project itself is an appropriation of a bunch of text and the titles in order, and that ended up telling the story of my life rather clearly. And so that is the book I'm selling. I'm a musician, and I also am selling a number of musical scores. I do a number of musical scores with Matt Robideau. We're called New Edition Publications. I'm holding up one of the ones. It's a recent one I just did. But we often work collaboratively in putting together our scores. And plus, I felt it would make my table a little bit more fun than just bringing a book or so. Bookfest is really fun. This is obviously not my normal cup of tea. I'm much more used to a lot of different artistic and music events. I find it to be really welcoming and everyone to be really friendly and interested in what you're doing. And
hi, I'm Karen Fisk. I'm here from University of Massachusetts Press, and this is our first time at the book fair. We're very glad to be here. I brought with me all the books from our fiction collection, poetry, short fiction, and novels that are part of the Juniper Prize for Poetry and Fiction. That's administered together with the MFA program from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. This book in particular is coming out of the MFA program. One of the editors, Jeff Parker, is a professor at the MFA program at UMass Amherst. And the second editor is Annie Leontis, who is actually from California. They've collected together more than 75 reflections on mentoring in the fiction and poetry field. And it's doing really well for UMass Press. We're really proud to have it. A little bit of a different story is We Got to Get Out of This Place, which was chosen as Rolling Stone's #1 Best Music Book of 2015. It's a pretty big surprise for us. Not too many university presses get that kind of award. This book is written mostly from the point of view of soldiers who have come back from Vietnam and talked about the only way that they've been able to talk about their time in Vietnam is through the music that they listen to. And that's what this story is about. This year's Juniper Prize winners are Mark Van Wagenen for his book, The Body Distances, 100 Blackbirds Rising. He just had a poem in the New Yorker magazine and has won numerous other poetry awards. We're real proud to have him on our list. And this year's fiction winner is Hasi Saracena, who's from New York City. She has written 10 short stories about the Sri Lankan Civil War. They're very beautiful stories and painful at the same time. A good collection. We also have the Grace Paley Prize for Short Fiction from the Association of American Writers and Writing Programs. This book, A Curious Land by Susan Maudi Daraj, is stories that start in Palestine way, way, way back 100 years ago and continue right through and tell stories of those same ancestors in the United States.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Brooks, and I'm here at the East Hampton Bookfest promoting my 2 novels, Relic and Relic 2, Resurrection. It's pretty good crowd here, a lot of foot traffic, and so sales are good. So the first book, Relic, is about a rogue faction of the military that is attempting to resurrect and clone an extinct species of human beings, Neanderthals, for use in close quarters combat. It's a world where Dr. Strangelove politics and Jurassic Park science collide, where the military embarks on a desperate project to seek out and destroy enemy combatants on their home turf. Relic 2 is the sequel to that, where a child is born, this special child, the mother dies, and the race is on to take possession of this child whose genetics are a relic of an extinct species of humans, and where 30,000 years of Homo sapiens dominance of the Earth could be put in jeopardy because of the existence of this child and its progeny. The book is self-published through CreateSpace. It's available at Amazon, both as paperback and Kindle format.
I am representing Hedgerow Books today. Hedgerow Books is the poetry imprint of Levelers Press out of Amherst. And it was started by Steve Strymer, and its mission is to support and promote what Steve calls the gems of the Valley, poets that may not have had the spotlight thrown on them, but are writing dedicatedly and really high quality poetry. And so we're here telling everybody about their poems. We have bookmarks, and we are handing out poems to people that they can choose. And it's sort of like a mystical, magical process to pick a poem out of a pile. anyway, that's what we're doing today. The poets come in many different voices and many different styles. They go through a fairly arduous submission process and then editorial process afterwards. We're really trying to keep the bar high. And the press was started in 2011, and it has a number of books that have had national recognition as finalists for the Massachusetts Book Award, the International Book Award, the Montaigne Medal, and the Eric Hoffer Prize. I'm aware that when you say poetry these days, people I have a sense that they get out the garlic and crucifix and go, poetry, oh God, please, anything but poetry. And sometimes it can be mysterious, and you read poems in the New Yorker and you go, what is that person on about? In the books that we publish, there's narrative poetry, there's poetry that is much more apparent and not. There's poems that are more abstract, and a poem is a snapshot that goes out into the world, and there's no bottom truth to it. When you read a poem, it's not about, you're not supposed to sit there and go, I don't get it. It's just about what you read and what might be really cool for you, what images in the poems that might strike any thought at all in your mind. Each poem that comes to the reader belongs to the reader, and there's really no high school English teacher behind it saying, no, you don't get it. It's just supposed to open a process of wonder in the reader.
Right, so my name's Dave Fromm, and I'm selling 2 books here at Bookfest. I'm selling, this is my first book. It's a nonfiction account of a year I spent playing basketball in Prague back in the mid-90s. And it came out in 2008 from Skyhorse Publishing. It's called Expatriate Games. And then this book is something I'm really excited about. It comes out on May 1st of this year, so it actually isn't out yet. It's my first novel, and it's called The Duration. And it's the story of childhood friends out in the Berkshires who are searching for the final resting place of a circus animal that died during the Gilded Age. And they find out about it years later when they're in high school, and search for it all summer long. And it's about friendship, and it's about the way that friendship kind of sustains us, but also hinders us and challenges us growing up.
What inspired you to write?
What inspired me to write? Oh my goodness, I don't even know. Probably reading whatever I could read when I was a kid. Just the imagination in stories like The Lord of the Rings, but long before that, fantasy stories, the Three Musketeers, Treasure Island, things like that. I always kind of wanted to be in those stories and be the characters in those stories. And as I got older, try to write a story like that for somebody else. In fact, the basketball book is dedicated to my son Leo, who was born the year it was published. And then a couple years later, we had a daughter named Eliza. So I thought I'd better try to do something for her, because if I don't, years from now, she'll be really mad at me. And the Duration book is kind of more of an adult novel. And so I wrote a story about a girl who discovers that her grandfather is a pirate. And it's about her adventures returning her grandfather's stolen treasure. And I'm hoping that book will come out next year.
Did you always want to write, or how did that?
I actually spent about 10 years being a lawyer, and I'm still a lawyer. But I was always writing when I was in high school and junior high school. And the basketball book was something that I did before I became a lawyer. And I kept it in my drawer for about 10 years until my wife and I, she got pregnant with our son, and I thought, well, I better write this book now so I can make him read it when he's older, and then he'll learn about what a cool guy I was when I was young. So basically, I've always tried to write, but it wasn't until the last, 8 years or so that I began to try to actually write books. And for me, the best thing that ever happened was I found an online writing community called Zoetrope that connected me to other writers who were just starting out and trying to get published in journals or online. And it became a real network and a real community of friends who were struggling with the same things, getting agents, submitting, waiting for months to hear, learning how to do things like write a query letter, and trading stories about what it's like to try to get published.
Hi, my name is Bill Campbell. I'm the head cook and bottle washer at Rosarium Publishing. We focus on speculative fiction, comics, a little crime and satire, all with a multicultural flair. As we like to say, we like to introduce the world to itself. We have about 40 artists from all around the world. And the reason that I'm here at, where am I? East Hampton Bookfest, is for this, APB, Artists Against Police Brutality. We're here at the book festival here, and then later on this evening, we're doing a Q&A and art gallery show at Comics and More. Rosarian Publishing was started about 3 years ago. Basically, it was, let's see here. Basically, I started Rosarian because there were a lot of things I wasn't seeing, including myself and other people of color being represented in mainstream media. And I thought, as an author, I was often told that there was no market for what I did. And I thought that that was ridiculous because there are over 100 million people of color in this country alone. Like, we're larger than Germany. So I thought to myself that we need to be represented not only for ourselves as adults, but for children as well. Like, children need to see themselves in popular culture. So instead of worrying about the different boxes that they try to put everybody in, the genres that I picked, science fiction and comics, was like we're allowed to imagine ourselves outside of that box. We can do whatever we want. The world is our oyster, other worlds are our oyster. So why not give children that? To tell them that while other people are telling you that your future is limited, that no, the future is yours to hold.
Well, my name is Maria Kamoulakou Marangoudakis. A little long, a Greek long surname that nobody can remember. And I've been here today because of my book. It's my first children's book. It's called The Adventures of Hope and Trusty Sky Cloud City. It's based on an ancient Greek play by Aristophanes. I'm an archaeologist by profession, and I moved in the States 8 years ago when I married my husband. I worked with the Greek Ministry of Culture for over 20 years. And coming here, I was looking for a way to be still involved with archaeology. Even though this is not archaeology, it's not an archaeological book, but it's based on an ancient Greek play, which makes me feel more comfortable. I adapted it for young children aged 7 to 10, and hopefully there will be a second and a third, again based on an ancient Greek play by the same playwright, Aristophanes. And this here is one of the characters. That's King Hoopy. A lady made it for me in Poland, and he's one of the leading characters, the ruler of Ornithopolis, the city of cloud, the city in the clouds, the bird city in the clouds.
My name is Gail Olmstead, and I'm an author of 2 contemporary women's fiction books. I enjoy being at affairs like this because I get to see what other people are doing to not only market their books, but get the inspiration for them as well. I've written 2 books. My first one was Jeep Tour. It is again, contemporary women's fiction, and it's all about a woman who's kind of at a crossroads in her life, takes a Jeep tour in Sedona, and decides to start over among the red rocks of Sedona. And she meets a sexy tour guide and decides that that's an opportunity to kind of reboot her life. And then everything changes after that. And my second book is Guessing at Normal, which is the story of what happens when an up-and-coming rock star meets a shy young poet, and her poems end up becoming the songs on his best-selling album. And so there's all kinds of complications when that happens with both their personal and professional relationship. Reader's Choice nominated it for Best Rock Star Romance, and it won. That was exciting. And then there's also a Reader's Favorite Awards that got a 5-star award for that. Neither book takes place on a beach, but I think these are both great beach reads because they're easy I won't say they're light because some of the subject matter gets a little bit heavy, but it's easy to read in one sitting or pick it up the next day and you'll remember where you were. So, good beach read.
Hi, my name is BJ Knapp, and I am the author of Beside the Music, and I am here to introduce the East Hampton reading population to my new novel. And this is a great event. I'm really enjoying, meeting all of the local readers around here and getting to meet some new people. So the basic idea is what happens to a marriage when an 80s metal band moves into the house. And I'll give you a hint, it doesn't really go so well for the couple. I am a sucker for 80s metal bands. I've been blasting their music all day today. I've read all the memoirs. Neil Peart is one of my favorites, Motley Crue. Ozzy Osbourne's memoir was amazing. I totally recommend it. I'm a sucker for rock star memoirs. The bassist in the book is loosely based upon Neil Peart from Rush because he is my boyfriend. And but it's kind of a mishmash of different ones that I've read. The little baggies I have, when I sell a book, I put the book in the bag and then somebody ends up carrying my cover all through the place. Sneaky, sneaky. And I have little earbuds that I have with my cover on them. There's earbuds inside, so when you want to rock out, you'll have earbuds. And then I also have things like, I made bookmarks with my cover on them, and I also placed a QR code on the back. So when you scan it with your phone, it'll take you to my page on Amazon so you can purchase an electronic copy if you like. Well, that's the thing with being an author these days is that your publisher really does not do very much in terms of marketing because they're on to acquiring the next big thing. So it's really all on us to do a lot of the marketing. So I'm the one who's doing all the tweeting and I'm reaching out to reviewers and I'm, participating in events like these to make a name for myself. Because nobody's going to do that for me. I have to be my biggest advocate.
My name is Linda Day, and I'm a musician basically, and I do illustration. I wrote this story and the song for my grandchildren years ago, and it has developed into a musical ebook, which you can see here maybe. And also I have some recorded CDs, and the idea is that as a country we're really not church-going people, but it's good to know the story basically. And especially in these times. And love your enemies is a little bit drastic, but I'm hoping to push the idea.
My name is Emily Wojcik. I am the managing editor of the Massachusetts Review. And we are a literary quarterly. We've been around for 57 years. We live on the UMass campus. And we publish fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and contemporary art. Usually with a bit of a political edge, but we're open to everything. We basically look for the best work we can find and publish it as often as we can. Today, we're really looking to connect with local writers. We are an international magazine, and as a result, even though we are located locally, we tend not to run into very many local writers. And so part of it is gaining some awareness of who we are in the neighborhood, especially on this side of the river, because we are normally living in Amherst, and there seems to be a bit of a disconnect sometimes between both sides of the river. So being over here, getting to meet the poets who live here, the writers who live here, and just getting the word out that we're looking for their work and we want to publish them.
My name's Robin Barber, and managing editor of Gallery of Readers Press, here representing our line of books, especially featuring our latest book, Blue Butterfly Open by Alice Barber. Alice is a therapist who works with children who have experienced trauma, and it's a collection of essays about her work. It's not a technical research book, it's a collection of personal essays, and we're very fortunate to have gotten amazing advanced reviews from people in the field of child therapy. and we're very proud of the book. It's an amazing book. Gallery of Readers features local writers, and we specialize in people who have not otherwise been published and people who would have a tough time being published in the extremely competitive mainstream publishing world. So all of these people are local authors from the Valley, and we publish a couple of books every year since 2010. Poetry, prose, short stories, an anthology of 40 local writers, a children's book about kids in Holyoke during the Depression. The author is Barbara Lucy, born and raised in Holyoke, and these are stories that her father told to her when she was a child. She grew up in a family of 9 kids, and their dad told these stories. And a few years ago, Barbara, her dad is gone, but a few years ago, Barbara decided to try to replicate the stories that she remembered her father telling to her. And they are great. They involve a talking fox and baseball.
All right.
And the Depression. So it's a fine collection.
So I'm John Shire. I'm an author from the area here in Northampton. I write all kinds of different books. I write children's books that I co-write with my dog. She's actually the more talented of the two of us, but she lets me take a little bit of credit. I also have a collection of short stories, a collection of essays on politics and current events, a couple of memoirs about my life experience, and I'm here at the East Hampton Bookfest to sell my books and meet really nice people who enjoy books and enjoy talking about literature. Yeah, this is my political book that I wrote right leading up to the 2012 election, and I wrote it after hearing Sarah Palin talking about the real America, and she was talking about rural areas. And I grew up in a rural area, and it didn't make me become like this reactionary, ultra-conservative like she is. We were all people really focused on community and connectedness, and we were all basically liberals. Some of us may have been Eisenhower liberals, a little bit more on the Republican side. My parents might have been Republicans, but they were definitely liberals at heart. And we were nothing at all like what Sarah Palin believed people should be. So I started writing about politics in reaction to that, and it led to kind of an obsession with writing about all sorts of political issues. I ended up getting a monthly column in the Daily Hampshire Gazette, writing about politics and current events. And this book was published right before the 2012 election. I actually have a new book coming out leading up to this election. It's coming out next month, about all the crazy things that have happened since the 2012 election. And that one's called, Donald Trump has his stupid saying, "Make America Great Again." My book title is "Make Common Sense Common Again," because I think the things that are happening, particularly on the Republican side, just defy common sense. And if we just fall back on common sense, that leads us to liberal points of view a lot more frequently than conservative points of view.
Great. My name is Jim Dubois, and I brought books of my poetry, prints of my paintings, as well as a few games that I invented, and it's all self-published stuff that I've created at home. This is a book called Return of the Slacker, and it's a printout of my blog. It's poetry, slacker poetry, so to speak. Here's some prints of my paintings. I just brought them along for fun, very bright colors. And it's nice to be here and have a space for this and talk to people. I have been featured in the art walk with my paintings in several places in East Hampton and Northampton, but I have not done the Bookfest in particular. The color draws a lot of people in, and the people have laughed at a lot of the poems, which is appropriately, not like inappropriately. This is acrylic paint. This is a print of a painting. And I do a lot of things where I will mix things in with the paint or thin the paint down and then pour it. So this orange on the front has been poured. This is all sorts of poured paint that different thicknesses, and then they ran through each other and stuff like that, and it dried in a cool dynamic shape. So that's a lot of it. The cover of this is a print of a painting of mine that had poured. I used all this paint that I poured on the canvas, and it pooled together and did cool stuff.
I'm Robert Mirapol, and I'm here representing my wife Ellen Mirapol, who at the moment is involved in a discussion in downtown East Hampton at White Square Books. So I'm sitting here in her stead. This entire table represents a Straw Dog Writers Group, which is an organization designed to present and support local writers. All the books that are here at this table are published by a half a dozen different people who are members of the Guild. They all have different publishers, but Straw Dog helps with networking, with craft workshops, with salons. So if there's anybody out there who wants to write, who is a writer and needs additional support, I recommend that they go online, look up Straw Dog, and they can get help if they want it, and a community of support if they want it. That said, my wife Ellen has written 2 novels. The first one, House Arrest, is situated in the Forest Park section of Springfield. It's the story about a nurse who is assigned to a young pregnant cult member whose first child died in a cult ritual, who is under house arrest because of what happened to her first child. And it's the story of the relationship between these 2 women. And I think that's as much as I'd want to say about it. You want to know more? You have to read it. The other book on Hurricane Island is set off the coast of Maine. There really is a Hurricane Island in the middle of Penobscot Bay. This is a fictionalized version of Hurricane Island, in which a secret detention center has been established. And it's the story of an older mathematics professor on her way to a conference who's picked up by the TSA at Kennedy Airport because they think she's somehow involved in some sort of terrorism, as both the anniversary of 9/11 approaches and a hurricane is coming up the coast of the east coast of the United States. And she's flown to this secret detention center, and what happens there to her and how everybody involved survives this ordeal and the hurricane is the story of the novel. So that's the 2 books that I am representing here this afternoon.
My name is Matthew M. Bartlett. I'm a local author of weird and strange horror tales set in western Massachusetts, in the Pioneer Valley. Some of them are set in Central Mass. So I'm here at the Bookfest today with some of my books, some anthologies I've appeared in. I was here for the first time last year and had a really good time. I like local small events like this. They're better than sometimes the very large horror conventions where it's easy to get lost and maybe not stand out so much. My first book, called Gateways to Abomination, was self-published. The follow-up is coming out in a couple of weeks. It's called Creeping Waves. That one I have a publisher for, a Colorado publisher called Muzzleland Press. The publisher of that read my first book that was self-published, and we ended up kind of making a deal to have him do the second book. The first book is kind of as you read it, it appears to be unrelated short stories and vignettes, but as you go further and further through the book, you begin to realize that it's all tied together, and it ends up being more like a novel in a way than a collection of short stories. The book is in e-form. The art, however, was inspired by a Facebook friend of mine who read the book and started sending me these illustrations that he did. Are fantastic work. So I am going to have that book republished through Muzzleland Press with illustrations and with an introduction and with kind of correcting some of the text and things like that, doing a little kind of a second edit of the book.